Hello, I am Financial Realities. For years, I worked as a stockbroker on Wall Street. I managed the money of the wealthiest 1%. And let me tell you this, these people never watch what you see on television. They try to understand why the television is showing those things. Today, together with you, we will ask a question that mainstream media never asks you in news reports about Venezuela. Is the Maduro issue really about oil? Or is it a much smaller looking piece of a much larger game? If you're ready, let's begin. Why the oil story is not enough. Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves, and it has always been this way. You already know this. The mainstream media already tells you this. The US is after oil. Maduro is resisting. The people are caught in the middle. This narrative is so internalized that no one questions it anymore. But I will ask you a simple question. If it were just about oil, why hasn't the US directly intervened in Venezuela since 2019? Venezuelan oil was already being sold on international markets in the 2000s. It was sold during the Chavez era, and it is sold during the Maduro era. You don't necessarily have to invade a country to own its oil. History has shown us this repeatedly. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait. Business is done with all of them. Their forms of government aren't exactly stellar either. But as long as the oil flows, no one gives speeches from the United Nations podium. So why is Venezuela so critical? The answer lies in something else beneath the ground. And this thing is the fuel for the real arms race of the 21st century. Rare earth elements. The war. You haven't even heard the name. What do we mean by rare earth elements? Let me give you an analogy. Think of your computer's processor, the miniature structure inside it, or the battery in your electric car, or the radar system of an F-35 fighter jet, or the guidance mechanism of a Patriot missile defense system. All of these would never work without elements whose names you've mostly never heard. Neodymium, dysprosium, terbium, lanthanum, cesium. All of these are called rare earth elements, REE. And don't let the word rare deceive you. These elements are found in small amounts everywhere. The real problem is having the technology and infrastructure to extract and process them economically. Now ask yourself this. What percentage of the world's production of these elements is in China's hands? The answer, approximately 60 to 70%. According to 2023 USGS data, China's share in the capacity to process these elements is as high as 90%. Do you know what this means? The smartphone you are holding in your hand right now was most likely made from elements that China allowed. The US military is dependent on China for the advanced technology weapon systems it uses, and China has played this card before. In 2010, they cut off exports to Japan during a crisis. No missiles were fired. But the message was clear. The US says, we cannot fall into such a position again. And Venezuela becomes important precisely at this point. The real treasure under Venezuela's soil. In addition to its oil reserves, Venezuela possesses some of South America's richest rare earth element deposits, specifically coltan. Do you know this mineral? It is critical in smartphone capacitors and defense electronics. A large portion of world reserves are in Congo and Venezuela. Lithium and cobalt, the oil of the electric vehicle revolution. Venezuela's Bolivar state has significant reserves. Vanadium, world-class reserves for energy storage systems. If you don't believe me, look at the USGS public data. This is not a conspiracy theory, it is public geological data. Now think about this. If you are the world's hegemonic power, and your superiority depends on these elements, and those elements are under the control of your rival, wouldn't you turn your eyes toward Venezuela? Answering the question, but isn't this a conspiracy theory? I was expecting this. Someone always asks, what is a conspiracy theory? They are narratives that present the unprovable as proof. But what am I doing for you? USGS data? Public. China's rare earth dominance? Public. The U.S. critical minerals strategy? Public. The Biden administration's 2022 document directly states, reducing supply chain dependence on China is one of the priorities of U.S. national security. This is not a secret. It's just that no television channel can use these data points in the same sentence as Venezuela news, because the Maduro dictatorship narrative is more emotional. The critical mineral supply chain diversification narrative doesn't bring in ratings. Do you know what I am selling you? Context. And context is usually the thing the media sells the least. Dependence on China. Let's talk numbers. Now let's get to the real crucial point. According to the IEA 2023 report, 63% of the processing capacity for minerals used in clean energy technologies is in China's hands. Lithium processing, 59%. Cobalt processing, 73%. Rare earth processing, between 85% and 90%. The U.S. Department of Defense clearly stated in 2022 that this constitutes a strategic security vulnerability. If I translate this as a stockbroker, imagine 80% of your company's most critical raw material is purchased from your rival. Would a bank ever give that company a loan? Now think. In the U.S.'s backyard, there is a country with these minerals, and its administration is close to both China and Russia. What would you think at the strategy table? Maduro's dance with China and Russia. Venezuela's debt to China exceeds $10 billion. Venezuela pays this debt with oil shipments. Russia, on the other hand, is on the ground through Rosneft. This picture makes it difficult to interpret the U.S. view as innocent advocacy for democracy. Whatever the political rhetoric may be, this is a resource war. That is very clear. History teaches us that every great technological revolution finds its own oil. Coal for the Industrial Revolution. Oil for the 20th century. Rare earth elements for the 21st. In Monopoly, the most valuable properties are the squares everyone is forced to land on. Critical minerals are exactly that. So, what should we do? The investor's perspective now. Let me tell you something very important. I didn't make this video to make you paranoid. On the contrary, I worked with the wealthiest 1% for years. This is how they read the world. Data, not emotion. Strategy, not panic. What can you do with this? There are ETFs focused on rare earths. Companies like MP Materials receive direct support from the U.S. government. Why? Because the strategy document mandates it. Lithium, cobalt, vanadium. This isn't a guess. It's the IEA's 2030 projection. Companies establishing a non-Chinese supply chain are getting subsidies. This is an opportunity. Of course, this is not investment advice. Do your own research. But the person who understands this trend now won't be saying, I wish I knew, 10 years later. Personal responsibility. The system feels rigged. But before I leave you, I want to say this. I know, the system doesn't always feel fair. Great powers wage resource wars. The media tells incomplete stories. All of this is true. But the people who created this system were also ordinary individuals at the start. They just took action by thinking analytically. When Deng Xiaoping said in the 80s, the Middle East has oil, China has rare earths, He was talking about vision. You too can have a vision. You don't have to change the system, but you can read it and use it to your advantage. This journey is entirely yours. Summary. How will you read Venezuela news from now on? Let's summarize. 1. Venezuela is far more than oil versus democracy. It's about the technology infrastructure of the 21st century. 2. The data is public. The connections are real. 3. Venezuela is not just a democracy problem for the U.S. It's a strategic supply chain issue. The information is now with you. If you found this useful, send it to a friend, especially to someone who says, the big guys decide everything anyway. Maybe this will change their perspective. Write in the comments, which piece of information surprised you the most? See you in the next video.